Hey guys, Ben from bachphotography here, and today we are looking at a fashion/portrait session I did with a model and friend of mine, Emma Jarvis. I'll leave a link to her Instagram in the description below if you're interested in checking out more of her work. So we did this session basically just so I could test out my new Godox AD600 BM studio strobe, which is absolutely awesome by the way. I'll go into a little bit more detail about that in the video. And the camera equipment I used on this photo shoot was a Sony a7R II, Sigma 85mm 1.4 and a Sigma MC11 adapter so I could use the Canon lenses on my Sony camera. So in this video we'll be looking at this photo here, and we're just going to go over the lighting techniques I used, the camera's gear I used, the settings in camera, lighting techniques, and then we'll also go into the post-processing in Photoshop afterwards. So like I said, Sony a7R II, Sigma 85mm 1.4 and the MC11 adapter. So this is the photo we'll be looking at in particular. I'm going to leave the raw file of this image in the description so that if you would like to edit along and do your own edits on this image as well, just go into the description, there'll be a link to Dropbox and you can download it there. So the settings for this particular photo was f1.4, ISO 100 and 1/250th of a second. So the reason I chose an aperture of f1.4 is because we were looking for a ethereal, dreamy sort of picture because the flowers were really bright and beautiful and it just made everything look really dreamy and warm and summery, having everything blurred out in the background. So that's why we chose an aperture of 1.4. Not only that, shooting at a low aperture really smooths out skin when you're shooting because it's a little bit out of focus, because normally what you do in a portrait is you aim for the eyes and they're what's in focus, and then everything else just sort of blurs into the background in a really beautiful creamy way. So that's another reason to shoot at a low aperture for portraits. We chose a shutter speed of 1/250th of a second because that's a nice fast shutter speed, fast enough for me to not get any motion blur from the model or from me shaking the camera. And we chose an ISO of 100 because that's the native ISO for my Sony a7R II, which means that we're getting nice, crisp, clean signal to the camera without any unnecessary noise in the image. So the Godox AD600, the setting that was on was 1/32nd power, so that is 1/32nd of full power, and I think that is 256, 128, 64. So that would be 1, 2, 4, 8 times more powerful than the least powerful setting. So basically what I was doing in this image here is I put the light behind Emma and blasted her back, and basically what this did is added some really nice rim light to her hair, as you can see in the top left of her hair, but also it made it look like the sun was really low down and we were getting some really nice low down light coming in from behind, because in this image it was actually completely in shade, so there wasn't any dynamic with the lighting. It was all very flat light, so what we decided to do is blast in light from the back and make it look like it's backlit lighting in this image, and make it look like there's some really beautiful warm white yellow light coming in from behind. So that's basically how we set up the photo shoot. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below and I'll try to answer them for you. So now let's jump into Photoshop and do all the post-processing that we did on the image. So the first thing I do when I put an image in Camera Raw is I just zoom in on the eyes and check that they're in focus, and it looks like this one is pretty much in focus, so I'm going to start editing this photo. If it was blurry I'd just go on to the next one because you can't really do that much to fix blurriness in the image. So first thing I always do when editing a portrait is I just drop the exposure and blacks and then paint over the eyes so I can see where I've made the selection. Oh, that looks creepy. And then I just get rid of that again so I know exactly where I've selected, and I just boost the clarity up. For some reason that was already on 9, that's okay, and then I just boost up the exposure as well just a little bit. If you go too far with this, give your model laser beam eyes, which is not what you want. Normally I just boost it up maybe 10 or 0.1 or 0.15 points. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay, next step is I'm going to add some clarity to the entire image, just about 20 points. Don't want to go too far, it goes a bit weird. But adding just a little bit does make the entire image pop, and it means that the things that are in focus really get separated from the background, which I really like. I'm going to add some vibrance to the entire image as well, but I don't want to go too far and make the skin tones a strange color, because if you add overall vibrance, as you can see, it just makes like here and all that sort of stuff just go a bit crazy. The skin tones look a bit weird, so just adding a little bit, and then I'm going to go into the blues and purples and really make these flowers pop. So just, oh, that's a little bit too much. About there, yep. And then maybe I might add some luminance as well to the to the purples just to make the whole image look a little bit more airy-fairy. And let's have a look what it looks like with blues as well. No, I think we'll keep the blues as they are. Okay, so next step, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the face, and then again I'm going to get the brush tool, drop the exposure and blacks, just so I can see where exactly I'm clicking. So basically I'm using it like a mask, and then I'm just going to pretty much just fill all the skin with this black blobby mask, just so that afterwards I can then I can make all of the skin be changed with the clarity slider. I'm going to smooth it all out in one go rather than blurring it in Photoshop. Just going to do it in Camera Raw instead. Yep, and you don't have to be too careful with this. You can be pretty slapdash. So I'm just going to do the hands as well, just to smooth them out a little bit. But yeah, as you can see, you don't have to be super careful. You can just sort of add that where you want. Okay, then you drop the exposure and blacks back down, and then you can change the clarity on the skin by itself. So I normally add no less than 30, just because then the skin goes a bit crazy and looks a bit unrealistic. In this situation I reckon I'm just going to go to minus 23. I think that looks pretty good. Okay, next what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit more darkness to Emma's hair. So just reset my brush, add a little bit of shadows, and drop the exposure down a little as well. And basically what I'm doing here is I'm just making the hair on Emma's head a little bit darker, and just make it pop a little bit more punch to the image. Yep, so that looks pretty good. Next step I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to brighten this side of her face up here. Just looking a little bit dark, so nothing too hectic. Might just add a third of a stop of exposure. And push it bigger, and then just add that in there. Might add some here too, because her arm is looking a little underexposed. Yep, that looks awesome. Okay, I think that is everything almost for Camera Raw. I'm just going to play around with the shadows, see what it looks like. I think I might actually remove some of the shadows and drop the highlights slightly down as well. Yep, that looks good. Alright, let's jump into Photoshop and see what else is left to do. Cool, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make her hair a bit longer and also puff it out a little bit as well, just to make it look more thick and full. So just go to Filter Liquify for that step, and then I zoom into the area I'd like to do, and then I just start pulling on her hair. And I find adding extra hair to a model really makes her look a lot more beautiful in my opinion, so don't feel too bad about going crazy with this step. I think it really does make all the difference. And I just need to pull her arm back in as well where I've messed it up a little bit. Yep, that looks good. Okay, let's go back. I think that looks pretty good. So that's before and that's after. Yeah, I really think that makes a huge difference. So the next thing I like to do is just beautify the model a little bit, just in a sort of generic modeling way where you sort of make them skinnier than real life. This isn't going to be a realistic depiction of Emma. It's just this photo is sort of just meant to make her look kind of like a fairy, I suppose. So it's okay to make her a little bit more slender and a little bit more slim, just because it's not really meant to be realistic looking. So that's that. I think that does make a big difference. I don't like to go too hectic with that. I still want it to look at least a little bit realistic. So the next step I'm going to do is I'm just going to make her lips a little bit darker. So I'm going to go over here to the curve selection, and I'm going to drop the curves down like this, and then press Ctrl I. You can press Command I if you're on a Mac. Go over to the paintbrush tool, and I'm just going to paint in a little bit more darkness to her lips. And if you can see over here, my opacity is on 25%. So if it's 100%, then it looks a bit weird. So you just want to add 25% darkness, just so it sort of blends in. And also the brush you want to use is the soft one here, so it gradients out into nothing. Cool, so I think that's pretty much this image done. Please leave a like if you enjoyed this tutorial, and in the comments let me know how your photo went and if it looks like this, or if you did a completely new edit. Please subscribe as well if you did like this content, because I'm going to be producing a lot more like this in the future. And once again, thank you very much for watching.